Bahu Forest, Dahu Doris.
I hate Christmas.
I'm opening my mind to accept it. Just let it wash over me.
I like sheet music.
Yeah, this is pretty good. This is okay. I
Dennis
like the
O'Hare.
illustrations. I don't really know who any of these people are, but that's okay. I don't gotta know. They don't gotta be famous. It's fine. I know Dr. Seuss.
Here we go.
Oh God. Oh God, guys.
Greetings, Broadway babies, and Merry Happy Christmas, all the holidays. I'm Emily,
And Gerald.
I'm Cody. I'm Jeff.
and we just watched Dr. Seuss's The Grinch musical on NBC.
Oh.
Yeah, they did that.
Look. You all know what we're gonna say. You all know what are you watching this for?
What do you want?
You know what we're gonna say.
What do you want from us?
So I want to kind of ease us into what we just watched by giving a little backstory, because I actually think the backstory of this show is pretty interesting.
Probably
Okay.
more interesting than the show itself.
Well, sure.
So let me get my notes here. So the Grinch musical, do you know what year it actually was written?
1994.
Aw, you didn't raise your hand. I raised my hand.
It's from 1994, and it was written for a Minneapolis children's theater company.
Oh.
This tracks. Absolutely tracks.
Feels like
Absolutely
children's
tracks.
theater. Feels like children's theater.
But then something interesting happened. So in 1998, it became a mainstay of the Old Globe in San Diego. It became a mainstay of their holiday season. So in 1998, every year, and the Old Globe is no slouch. They're a
Nope.
really good regional
Yeah, for
theater. They're like the best regional theater probably in San Diego.
Yeah.
Like people come from out of town to do stuff there. Broadway shows do out of town. Tryouts at the Old Globe. This is no slouch.
Yeah.
So in 1998, they started this musical. It was part of their holiday season, and they've done it like every single year. And fun fact, the first Cindy Lou Who in 1998's Old Globe run in San Diego, the role was played by a young Vanessa Hudgens
Whoa!
Whoa!
For real?
Is that
of High School Musical and Rent Live and Gigi on Broadway and Grease Live, and she's done a lot of stuff. She's
Yeah.
pretty good.
That's
actually.
a pretty good claim to
I like
fame.
Vanessa
All
Hudgens.
grounds up.
I like her.
Okay, so then in 06-07, the show went to Broadway for a run in their holiday season, and this is the best tidbit. Do you know who played the Grinch in that Broadway run?
Who is it?
Jeff?
Who is it?
Gerald, you don't know who it is?
No, I don't know
He
names.
was in one of your favorite musicals, Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark. As
Jeff.
a hint.
Jeff. Do not insult me. Thank you.
Yes, but he
thought you liked that one.
also...
I like Spider-Man, but I don't like that music.
Sorry.
But
I
this
like
gentleman also has asked you recently, why do we build the wall, my
Yes.
children?
How does the wall keep us free? My children, how does the wall keep us free?
Patrick Page!
Patrick Page, who was most recently Hades in Hadestown, and who's infamous for playing another green Broadway character, the Green
Green
Goblin,
Goblin.
in Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark. And
He's good.
few years
Very good.
before that, he was another green character. He was the Grinch on Broadway.
Wow.
So there was a
Amazing.
short Broadway run. It was supposed to come back in 07, but then it got canceled because of the stagehand strike.
Yeah,
Oh.
that canceled quite a few shows, actually. It's true.
So it only had a brief Broadway run. Like I said, Patrick Page was the Grinch, but John Cullum was Old Max. John Cullum! He's got that voice like that. He sang about triangle trade in 1776.
Oh.
He was in, he's Leap Day William.
What?
You watch 30 Rock? That's him.
Oh.
He's also on Kimmy Schmidt. He's the Daddy's Boy's daddy.
Oh,
anyway,
I remember that
Daddy's Boy's daddy. He's a Broadway legend. Broadway legend.
Yeah. He was in Urinetown.
He was in Urinetown. He was
So good.
Caldwell Cladwell. Yeah. So he's a great. He's the perfect guy to play
like
that
a
part.
mainstay, okay.
Exactly. And then the show had a lot of tours. It had a tour in 08. It had a run in LA at the Pantages.
Some up, some down.
Yeah, a lot of national tours. And then most recently, it had a UK tour in 2019. So just last holiday season.
That's right.
So this show has existed for a while, and to me, it is kind of the quintessential community theater show.
Totally.
It certainly felt like it.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, it feels like there's a role for every actor that you have in your group.
In your back pocket.
Yeah. Like Old Max, for example, that is definitely, we have this character actor, we don't have a role for him, but he's in his 50s or 60s, it's hard for him to memorize lines, but he's really funny. So is there some way we could just plop him downstage right in a spotlight and have him narrate?
With a big book with all the lines in it.
With a big book with all the lines in it. It's Clifford Woolley from Waiting for Go. Oh, I didn't see you sneak up on me there.
We were calling that as, like, we had heard that Old Max was in the show when we were looking at the cast list and everything, and from the beginning we called it, we were like, this is going to be the narrator character, like, and of course, it goes through the entire show, like him just narrating the whole thing.
You know,
I'm just looking to cook up some beans.
I did have a hankering to be an actor when I was a young
when I was in
fella.
the Coast Guard.
But I went to taxidermy school. Well, I took a correspondence course. But,
yeah,
you know.
everything comes back to Guffman. And you know, this is why I love Waiting for Guffman, if I can just go to that, because I do love community theater. I love it so much. You learn so much from community theater.
Oh, sure.
And the thing is, it is meant to cater to your community, okay? So you're supposed to cast it around the actors that you have in your group, and
they're
it's
like
wonderful.
known in the community. People go to see the show because they're like,
Yes.
you know, your friends and family are in it and everything. Like,
It's beautiful.
It makes total sense.
It's beautiful. And so, you know, I don't know about you guys, but one of the things that's really been tearing at my soul this holiday season is, you know, I haven't been able to go see any live theater. And this Grinch musical and the Dolly Parton Netflix musical, Christmas on the Square. Watch it. Go watch it right now. But Christmas on the Square and the Grinch musical are fulfilling this very primal need I feel right now. This need where it is Christmas time, and usually I have some friend who's doing a show in Orange County, and it's some Christmas show, and they're like, look, will you just come out and see my Christmas show? I have a good part, will you come see it? And then you go, oh, okay, I'll go see it. And you go, and it's not that good, but it's like kind of good, and your friend is kind of good, and it's like kind of lame but fun, and you drink wine at intermission, and you're doing okay, and you get in the holiday spirit, and maybe it's a little Jesus-y, maybe not, but in the end, you have your Christmas theatrical experience. And let it be known, the Grinch musical is not good, and we will get into that. But musicals like The Grinch and Dolly Parton's musical, Christmas on the Square right now, are tapping into that thing that I miss.
Yeah. Well, and also it's right up your alley because you are so attuned to theater for the community, not just for Broadway. You enjoy like community
And for
theaters
kids.
and
That
high
too.
schools and
But-
colleges doing shows.
You know, the thing about theater like this is it's big event theater for your little community. So, like, there are times that I've done regional theater, there's times that we've done tours, there's times that we've done a lot of stuff, but I feel like every actor who's worked on stage has done a community theater production in their life, whether it was when they were a child or older. Like, people do it at all stages of life because
Sure.
it's fun and easy to do.
And it's a good learning experience, too.
We all worked regularly with Monrovia. They have a theater company there in Monrovia,
Louise K. Taylor Performing Arts
yes,
Center.
and we would do local community theater on a pretty big scale there.
I
So
started doing White Christmas over there.
yeah, and sometimes the people in it are good, and sometimes they're bad, and,
Yep.
and it is what it is, and you try to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And this was very much a community theater production on NBC.
No, there's a storybook. This is so contrived already.
just looking for a snack.
Well, before you know it, everyone, rich and poor alike, had to have a Blaine stool in their home.
And I live there with him. I'm Max, his old dog.
Oh, it's Max.
Footstool factories sprouted up like toadstools.
Gerald! Has this killed you already?
Everyone had a good job. Everyone was making a good wage.
My shoes! My head's not right! You're the one who brings back sticks! You can't even recognize your face in a mirror. Heel.
What?
Blaine was on the map.
Well, let me say. I'll start by saying I thought that the conceit of using old Max sort of as your bookend, your narrator character. I actually thought that was cool. I thought that was a good choice that they made to get us back into the story that everybody knows.
It was fine.
The hardest thing that they had to deal with is filling all the holes of this. We're trying to make this into an hour and a
That would
half
normally
long.
have.
Yeah.
Well,
It's only like a 22-minute
Well, and it didn't even
tops.
feel, but honestly, I have to say, it didn't feel like it had as much padding as, like, say, the Grinch movie does.
No, because it's shorter.
And that's also what I want to compare this to, because I got people, okay, so I made this comment, like, on social media where I was like, this wouldn't be on our TVs if the Grinch movie wasn't a thing that younger millennials and Gen Z look back on with rose-tinted glasses as a masterpiece. And, like, we were all technically adults, I think, when the Grinch film came. Maybe you were in high school, but you were in high school.
But I remember seeing it and being like,
None of us have any attachment.
why is he
to it.
doing a Sean Connery impression? What is this movie?
Yeah. And there's just a whole generation that loves that movie. And the other thing is Universal, which owns NBC, they milk that Grinch stuff every year at the parks.
That's their main decoration.
Have you ever been to Universal Studios in Florida or LA at Christmas time? It's just the Grinch, and it's the Who's.
It's the Grinchmas. I think they even
Yeah,
call it the
they call it
Grinchmas.
Grinch-
And they're all
for sure.
doing a Jim Carrey impression,
Yeah.
and they all have to wear those stupid little noses.
Which they all had
which
in
looks
this.
so ugly.
The singer,
this version.
Oh, we're
the
gonna get
singer
into
doesn't
those
have to because
noses.
she can't sing without it, but
That's
everybody
right.
else has to
They
wear
do
it.
a whole
Exactly.
thing, and they wouldn't do it if there weren't all these people who are now like in their 20s who are like, this is something I like. I got to show this to my kid, to my niece, to my whatever.
Yep.
And it's still around. So I know this musical existed before the Grinch movie.
Right.
However, the Grinch movie set us on a trajectory where we just remake the Grinch all the time and just keep doing it. And you cannot tell me that Matt Morrison did not have Jim Carrey in his performance. Because
Right.
he tried to do his own thing, and I don't know if it was because NBC told him to or if that's just... Boris Karloff is gone. Boris Karloff is way gone.
Like, nobody cares about
Cumberbatch
him
didn't
anymore.
even make a dent. It's just Jim Carrey who people hear when they hear the Grinch. And so, like... So he was
God.
doing a lot of
Yeah.
the vocal fry, and he was doing the kind of clip Sean Connery
Well,
kind of mush mouth thing.
Also, the Grinch is not like a funny guy who does impressions like Jim Carrey is. And so if Jim Carrey had never done the role, I don't think we would have this version of the Grinch who's like doing a Texas drawl
who's like
accent.
a
and who's like-
comedian with his microphone.
Yeah,
right
he's
there.
making the funnies. Like he's trying to make the funnies.
Yeah.
And he's not Jim Carrey. The Grinch
Well,
is not
there's so
his
many
character.
things. If you're playing the Grinch as an actor, there's so many things you have to justify that are just too difficult to justify. So you have to be a zany, crazy dude who
Yeah.
often does things for no reason, which is what Jim Carrey did, and it's
And
what Matt Morrison did in
So,
the show.
yeah, and you know what? This is a family show. This is not supposed to be for adults. It's meant to be for families to watch with their kids. And it was written in '94 by two guys I've never heard of. That's not a knock against them. They don't have any other credits. And then the other thing is, we have a big Broadway musical based on the Seuss canon, and that is Seussical. And I wouldn't know it except I was directing Seussical Jr. before COVID happened, 2 weeks before the show, and my poor kids, who were actually really good and worked really hard and were really sweet, and they should have had their show, and it bums me out. Bums me out, I can't get out. But because of that show, I got to kind of know Seussical, and I wouldn't be surprised if Aarons and Flaherty had taken a lot from this because a lot of the same DNA that's in Seussical is in this. And obviously it's Seuss, but the bright costumes, the speaking in verse. Hey, I'll give this for the Grinch musical. Everything's in verse, whereas the Grinch movie couldn't do that.
They couldn't hang.
I couldn't do it, apparently.
No.
And the million reprises at the end.
Oh my god.
There's a lot that's kind of the same, and that makes sense. And the other thing is that Seussical didn't really do well on Broadway, but it's had a wonderful life in regional community and children's theater, because of course it does. It's a kid's show.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the logistics. We've gone into the history, we've gone into the kind of community theater of it all. Let's talk about this musical itself.
You know, so many of the songs, particularly in the first act of this musical, just scream to me that these two guys, whoever they are, had never written a musical before. There's a lot of...
I think one of them has written a bunch of plays.
This is what I think a musical should do, and we're telling the audience all of our subtext constantly. You know, like you mentioned, how many songs can be about the fact that the Who's love Christmas and that the Grinch hates Christmas and that the Grinch doesn't like it. That's 4 songs.
In that first act, leading up to him... It was leading up to him impersonating Santa Claus and going into Whoville to steal Christmas, right? A story that takes place in the original cartoon, about 30 minutes. Now, that took an entire act to get to, but every single song in that act, like you just said, was either about the Who's liking Christmas and how much they liked Christmas, or how much the Grinch hated Christmas and why. And we needed apparently like 3 really good justified reasons
beat you over
for him
the head with
to hate
this.
Christmas. Even in the original story, we only needed the fact that he was annoyed by it. Like,
you can fill in the
it
rest.
was noisy,
And
he's the Grinch. We don't need a normal it's like it's looking at Oscar the Grouch and being like, Oscar, why are you such a grouch?
Why are you a grouch?
Because he's a grouch.
Over and over again, the same
All
thing.
the Grouches are the same. Like,
Well, and like, this is the thing I'll give the movie. The movie version does flesh out Cindy Lou Who.
yeah.
And that is what kind of gives it some of, I guess, its padding in its runtime. And this version doesn't.
No.
And I kind of understand why, because again, this was written as a community theater production, and they don't want to have too much kind of the plot to carry on this kid's shoulders when the show is about whatever character actor in the company, whatever like scenery chewing guy gets cast as the Grinch. So I get that. There's
the show
also,
is for the guy who's playing the Grinch.
yeah, and look, I knew it was gonna have, even though it's a musical from 1994, I knew in my soul that it was gonna have those cruise ship Genie from Aladdin at Disney California Adventure, like,
kind of
is this thing on? Is this thing on? Topical reference. Here's Matthew Morrison doing a Donald Trump impression.
And the reason why they do that is because people are like, hey, reference that I recognize, ha 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 ha. But there's no
They do
crowd.
reference that I recognize, and they go nuts.
You know, that's kind of like lowest barometer or lowest common denominator writing, right? Like
That's the lowest bar.
Lowest hanging fruit. Whatever the obvious joke is, just do that because the kids will laugh at it and that gives the crowd some
No, the
energy.
parents laugh at it. The kids don't get that. That's the thing. It's so the kids are going wee fart jokes and wee bright colors, but it's so the parents go, oh, that's a thing a Donald Trump reference, honey. Oh, did you get that, honey? Oh.
It's the reason why like the new Animaniacs show does like a bunch of references to Trump and like Tucker Carlson. It's like kids don't know who Tucker Carlson is. Who the frick is?
Well,
But that's
Animaniacs is good though. That's
exactly.
well written.
Exactly.
Not the
Yeah,
same
I
as
don't
this.
mind that
It's
in
different,
animated
Not a-
series, but like in something like, to me,
That's
it's like,
done well.
Yeah.
to me, it screams of Hades and Villains Tonight, or the Genie in Aladdin, where it's like, hey parents, I'm gonna throw you a bone. You must be so bored.
We're all stuck on this cruise ship and you're stuck in the theater with us for an hour, so let's do
Exactly,
this.
and it's just cheap. You don't rely on the source material to kind of keep everyone invested.
Right.
I also think, I'm sorry, I just have to go back to the noses because I thought it was so jarring and weird. I hate how these live action Grinches always give these Who's these fake noses, the adult Who's. The kids get to have their noses because they have cute button noses. But like in the movies, they have these weird fake front lips and these little teeny noses. And then in this version, they have big noses with like big buttons, big dots at the end.
They made them look like drunks essentially because their noses were just all shiny and red.
Yeah, or like Santa Claus noses or something. Like it's like, can we just do crazy hair? They also stood in first position all the time, like they were Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, how many different like reads do we need that who's are not like humans?
Yeah,
I guess.
I didn't mind the first position stuff that
that's
much.
fine.
I thought that was cute, but like, can we just stop with these weird prosthetics and these I hate them.
Can I also say, just to add on to that, as long as we're doing like first impressions of the Who's?
Yeah.
Just the color scheme of the Who's, and I'm sure this works much better on stage for this.
Yeah.
But just seeing all those garish colors with the big baggy pants and huge like colorful hair, it was just every single character looked like an out of the circus clown.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to like mesh with the characters and think of them as like real people.
That's the thing, but even in the thing of the costume design that you're talking about, that's the challenge, right? The costume designer can go crazy and make the biggest, bawdiest, craziest costumes ever, but you also have to ground it in the story,
Right.
or else it just feels
to make it
cheap.
believable.
It feels like we're trying to be tricked or something.
This is the thing. This is why the medium and the circumstances for consuming art matter, because that stuff would read great if you were in a theatrical house with a proscenium and an audience. The colors would work. The big choices would work. If this was your community, there are so many moments in this where Matt Morrison is doing all this stuff that is intended to have the audience respond to him.
Yeah, he's
With
reacting to the audience.
Interaction. And this is the problem of, this is not a Broadway show. This is not a Broadway show that transcends. This is a familiar name that is a cash grab. If this was my local, around the corner community theater doing it, it would be great.
Yeah,
I would be there. I'd be applauding. I'd pay the $10 to go see it.
Support local theater.
Support your local theater, ladies and gents. You buy it. You allow these things.
You can suspend your disbelief.
You can suspend, and you forgive certain things.
Yeah.
You accept certain things about acting. You accept crazy choice. You accept a lot of stuff when you're in a theater. And
Watching a live
and especially when it's your community theater, when you might know someone, when you know some people up there,
Especially
when they're making jokes about your community. It's so different than watching this, which is clearly supposed to be a community theater show on a national platform.
International, with no context.
Yeah.
With no audience
Yeah.
and no proscenium. They're in a studio. So
You gotta change the way you
the
direct it.
intimacy of the camera going all up in their faces, on the one hand, yes, this is good because it's bringing theater to the masses, and this is always a good thing. On the other hand, I wish we weren't in COVID land and they could have just done this on a stage and filmed it like a pro shot, because it wouldn't have felt as weird that way. And I don't know why that is. That's just how it is.
It's the directing.
Well, they were trying to do it like they were doing the live shows every single year up to this point, and it's just not. It can't work the same way.
And it wasn't live. That was the other thing. There were a zillion commercials with these weird transitions.
Oh God! Every single transition was so forced and hard to like.
Because this show
work
had to be
through.
80, 90 minutes. I'm not kidding. I think this show has to be a one act, because with commercials, it was way longer.
I mean, they broke it into 2 acts. I don't know if like it could actually work.
It
that
had
way,
2
or, like-
emotional act beats, but you could tell where the act ends. But I can't imagine them splitting in. I mean, I guess they would split it into 2 acts, because of kids and stuff.
Right, but if you were doing this in any major theater, it would run for, depending on scene transitions and everything like that, hour 15, hour 30 probably, hour 40 tops.
Yeah.
Like if
This
they're really
wasn't
wrenching
even.
it out.
This was 2 hours with a zillion commercials.
So many commercials.
Yeah, well, I was just so confused by the choices musically, particularly early on. It didn't have any hook that grabbed me. There was no melody that I was kind of
nothing
expecting.
catchy. There was nothing
At least
catchy. There
give
was no
us something.
theme.
Now I will say that musically you could see that there was some craft there. There was some nice harmonies, and like they did some madrigal stuff. The little like acapella
Hobbling.
Oh,
sections.
they did
But
in 2
the most
ensemble
important
numbers.
thing is
yeah.
melody, and there was just nothing that got me.
I wrote a tweet where I was like, this is like Sondheim music with Tim Rice lyrics and Jason Robert Brown harmonies, and it sounds awful. I don't know why. The composer wrote for the Who's, for all the Who songs, the poor parents and grandparents of Cindy Lou Who, all of their songs sounded like Sondheim cut songs from Follies.
Yeah.
They sounded like weird, these were supposed to be Christmassy songs, and then it was like minor key, weird harmonies where I could not grab onto the melody. And don't get me wrong, you all know I'm the biggest Sondheim slut in the world. Sondheim's my guy. But for a children's musical, I want to grab onto a melody.
This has a melody? Oh.
There we go.
A melody!
Finally, we got a melody, ladies and gentlemen. We got a melody.
They did this song called "It's the Thought That Counts." And I speculated beforehand where I was like, oh, I bet they're going to be giving each other like lame presents, but they're Who's, they're making the best of it. Where it's like, oh, sucks. Well,
Could be a cute song, right?
It's the thought that counts. And instead, it was this weird thing where they're in the department store and they're like teaching them like, it doesn't matter what, it was about being stressed at the holidays. And they were singing.
Getting the right present, I think, for somebody.
They were singing in like 4-part jazz
so
harmonies
weird.
for the whole thing.
It was all
couldn't have
dissonant
tried.
and like
I
haunting.
couldn't grasp the melody. I was like, where is it? Where is this melody? I can't get it.
You couldn't have tried to write a more like uninteresting song within that context. There's so much you could do with that.
It almost sounded like every song, especially that one, but a lot of the others as well, was just like somebody writing recitative lines.
Yeah.
Like throughout the poetry.
It felt like, oh, this is what you do in a musical. Just do this and tell this story. And it's like, you got. There's some
and then there
craft
was
to
the
this.
cobbled together bits of other songs. Like besides like the stylistic choices, there were just so many like musical lines from other things that I kept pulling out. Like, wait, that's from this. That's from that.
Yeah, you could tell you could tell that the composer was very much inspired by a lot of other musical theater composers. There are a lot of moments where we were like, is this Cabaret? Is this Annie? Is this Sweeney Todd?
Yeah.
He's not very nice. It's Christmas Eve, the whole Christmas season.
There was a barber and his wife, and she was beautiful.
Like it just
But
was.
the most important thing is this appropriate for the show? And it really wasn't for most part. It just doesn't work with this source material.
Yeah, in the second act beginning, they sang this song called "Now's the Time," and it's like, oh, it's Christmas Eve. And again, it was just like this weird, like, I can't even tell you what it sounded like.
What a boring way to open your second act, by the way.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it was the Who parents kind of singing this weird song that didn't even sound like a Christmas song.
Nope.
The only songs that stuck out because of the melody were the songs that we already knew.
Yeah.
Bahoo, Forays,
Welcome Christmas, I think
Welcome
it's called.
Christmas, and You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
Those are the best ones. Oh, and
And again, everyone who was like, this isn't inspired by the movie, they added Where Are You Christmas for no reason except it finally gave those poor Who parents an actual melody to sing. It had no reason to be there.
At least it's a competent song, unlike most of the other songs from the show.
I can just hear Faith Hill singing it in my head. Where are you, Christmas?
Other than that and padding the runtime, it's just like, painfully obvious.
Well, they cut it. They cut. It's supposed to be Who Likes Christmas reprise, and then they changed it for the TV special to put in Where Are You Christmas. So NBC Universal knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted us to think of the Grinch movie.
But they also wanted to replace one of the 17 reprises that are in the goddamn second act.
The end of it, it's like 7 reprises. It's
like, oh, good. That's exactly what I wanted from my second act.
Like, I applaud the choice. I love that they did this. I love that the actors got to have some fun on a soundstage.
Yeah, they look like they were having a good time.
Really rock this.
Look, they were amazing. I'm so glad they got work.
Same.
I'm so glad they got to do a show. Even Matthew Morrison, like, really, like, everyone involved, all the performers, they were doing their job. They were were doing
Yes.
their job.
You can appreciate the job that was done for every single one of those people, even if you don't like
They got paid.
the source material of what they were doing.
Well, and you know, it's not easy to sort of justify some of those monologues that the Grinch has. You have, like, he had, you know, I respect a lot of what he did.
He had an insane laugh
It's a
when his
difficult-
heart grew. That was insane.
That choice was interesting, but at least he made a choice.
Well, you're not wrong, man. Like,
The Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Oh my god.
Ahem. I'll have what he's having.
if you were doing that role, if you got paid a lot of money to play the
gotta make it
Grinch in
work.
that show, wouldn't you just have some fun with it and make a lot of weird choices and let the director kind of rein you in a little
That's
bit?
it.
Yeah.
Do it. Why not?
I actually really did like Dennis O'Hare as Old Max. Old Max does not need to exist. I know it's an
not at
okay
all.
trope in the story.
I like it.
But there's literally no reason except I guarantee they were like, well, let's see, Charles needs a part. What are we gonna? Hey, what if we write Max? We'll make him an old guy, and we'll
He
just
can
put him
tell-
in that.
he can be the narrator and tell the story.
But the thing is, Dennis O'Hare has a Tony. He was in Take Me Out on Broadway. My favorite thing is he was in the revival of Assassins. He was Charles Guiteau, and obviously he has a huge television career. He's been on American Horror
He's been around the
Story
block.
and a bunch of movies. I think he's a great actor, and I actually kind of really liked what he did with Max because he is kind of such an odd choice. Like in LA, that role was played by John Larroquette. Like I said earlier, John Cullum. So, you know, it's kind of a certain kind of actor.
Yeah.
So I do think he's kind of a weird choice. They gave him weird jowls too.
Yeah, he looked really funny, but
Yeah.
you know.
And then his
worked.
younger counterpart was Boo Boo Stewart. And he was fine. He was cute.
Just-
His
the
name
name
is
is just
Boo Boo
funny.
Stewart.
Well,
He's very
like
cute.
kind of going back to what Em said, the fact that this was on a soundstage, no proscenium, no crowd. There are certain things that you have to direct your actors like slightly differently, and
Oh, sure.
on full display in full close-ups, we get schmacting across the board.
Again, you got that community theater at Christmas fix.
Yeah.
Over and over again, we say, "Well, the actors did a great job. They did the best they could with it." It's so often it's the writing. And mostly it's the book. Usually it's the book. In
And
this
the
case, the
direction,
music
too.
and the lyrics and the direction. There was a lot of stuff going against our actors in this.
I definitely agree. Like, I think I've always had a problem with the way that a lot of these live shows are directed to you, like even way back in the day. I think it worked a lot better, or it always works a lot better when you have an audience to play off of, obviously.
totally, yeah.
But like, in this era where we're getting back into doing these again, I feel like you have to have some really on the ball, like ready, like who knows what they're doing director who can direct a live musical.
See me in a book. Excuse me.
Guess who?
Excuse me.
I'm no who.
Excuse me. Why is there a pimp in this show?
Gerald.
Why? He looks like a pimp.
That's my part.
So I just think that it's a great idea. The idea is sound. It just the follow through isn't there because the quality of the work isn't there. If it was a show that was better that we could relate to more in that setting, a soundstage. You know, you're shooting lots of different times, then you edit it together. You don't have the constraint of it being live.
But
There's
like,
so much you can do with that.
Why did the
goes back to
Wiz?
director, too.
But like
Yeah.
the Wiz live worked. Also, this wasn't live,
Right.
but like the Wiz worked. Hairspray worked. There's a lot of these that worked, and a lot of them worked because the Sound of Music even kind of worked.
But-
When a musical is bad, it's a lot of the time it's because of the book.
Yeah.
If the structure is bad, there's only so much dressing up that you can do.
What-
If the
yeah.
foundation sucks, then you have to rebuild from the ground up. You could write an entirely new Grinch musical.
You need
There
to.
are certainly,
You need to.
certainly, Universal could go to Pasek and Paul,
Yeah.
or Kerrigan and
Oh, God.
Loudermilk,
Steven
or Carter
Schwartz.
and Gregor, or even Ryan
Alan
Scott
Menken,
Oliver,
you know, somebody
and
like
make
that.
it crazy. But there's so many new up and coming musical theater people who they could probably pay less and like just get to write something like this that has a more coherent book that isn't a community theater production? What if they just said, let's write a new Grinch musical that we are doing specifically for TV so we can write it to our specifications?
That's what I thought they were doing. I
Yeah.
honestly thought, I didn't look it up, but I honestly thought that's what was happening.
But I think they also might have thrown it together really fast, though, because COVID.
That's also possible. But and the other benefit to having somebody like a known team of people writing a new book and music for such a show is that it would have a unifying freaking theme.
Yeah.
It would actually, like you said, feel cohesive.
Wouldn't
The
be like
songs-
a cobbled together kids show.
Yeah, it wouldn't feel like somebody just
Well,
took a bunch of like
here's
themes
the thing.
from other songs and musicals they liked and went,
This is what I mean when I say it feels like it's the first musical they ever wrote, because it feels like they're
Might have
saying
been.
Might have been.
this is what should happen here because this is a musical, and it isn't driving the plot necessarily, but I need a song here, and we want it to be this, and it's surface, and there's nothing about it that grabs you.
Literally,
that's the difference.
3 of the
If
songs in
your
that
song-
show drove the plot forward. None of the other ones did.
What did we think of Matthew Morrison?
I thought it was good. I like
I
his
mean-
performance. There's only so much you can do there. I mean, you gotta really. He has to embrace
I don't
it.
know what else he could have
What
done.
else could he do?
To be frank,
I don't know, like I said, I don't know whether they made him or if it's just subconscious because this is what we do now,
Yeah.
but he had some Jim Carrey in there, but he also, I felt like he had like a little Anthony Hopkins,
Oh, yeah.
definitely the Sean Connery going on,
Well-
like it was like, I don't know what you're doing, Matt,
Well,
but you're doing your thing, but he had boy band hair, he had freaking like the little like bounce thing right here of
And
the hair,
like what
that.
Cody said earlier, and you said it too, he doesn't have an audience. Like
Didn't have an
that's
audience.
a pretty
There's straight up
significant
a moment with a false like encore where he's coming back going, no, stop. And of course there's no audience there because COVID,
Yeah.
but like,
could they did? I don't even think they played canned like audience.
they didn't. They
like they could have done that.
Yeah.
They could have just played audience sounds for that moment.
Yeah.
It would have made the moment work.
Yeah, it would have been like his own little fantasy moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like they didn't need an audience
could
to
have done
make
that.
that particular moment.
But I just mean in
Like-
general, like the way he approached the character. Like I had all the sympathy for him because he's really kind of up there, and it's just all on him. And we got close-ups. It's not even like a theater like proscenium. It's close-ups. You know, this is a
he
this
had
is a
fake
very
teeth
challenging.
and some like weird wrinkles like drawn on
that's challenging, and I thought he rose to the challenge.
Yeah,
as
he
could.
did the
I
best.
really think he did.
If any one of us were given this role to do, like I said before, like we would schmaltz it up,
Yeah.
we would have fun with it.
Yeah.
We'd be like, "Hey, this is stupid, but I'm gonna have fun doing this role."
Yeah.
He did say he was taking inspiration from Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and I think you could see that when his heart starts growing and he starts kind of laughing maniacally, and it's
It wasn't
scary.
supposed to be maniacal. It
It's
was confusing.
Weird.
It was scary though.
I didn't see it
weird.
coming. Do you think it was intentional? It was supposed to be
Yeah.
scary?
I don't know.
I don't think that's what he intended.
Yeah,
I
it
think
just
he
came
meant for it
across
to be
that way.
joyful, but like
I don't think he
awkward.
had the.
He wanted it to be awkward.
I don't
which
think he
was-
had the nuance to do it. I
Yeah.
think you needed I just genuine and again, no slight against you, Morrison. I couldn't do this, but like, and I'm a really good
Somebody who's
actor.
confused
But
by
like,
their
I could.
unhappiness or
I
something.
feel like someone
Or
like
generosity.
I don't know, like an Adam Driver could pull it off.
Ooh.
You know, like,
guys,
doing a-
Adam Driver as the Grinch.
He'd be like,
new idea.
I'm mean,
What about-
angry, I'm flustered.
What about like
I hate Christmas. Punch the wall.
what about like Jake Gyllenhaal or
love it.
something?
Gyllenhaal.
That would be-
Gyllenhaal would be
Gyllenhaal.
great.
He would
Totally.
have just told him. Or
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just imagine what would Patrick Page would have been like. Like obviously he's probably a little too old to do it now. Like he wouldn't have done.
Oh, he's
is that the
definitely.
original guy?
That's Patrick Page who did on Broadway. He was
And- right,
80s, and
How do you think he would have done it differently? I'm so curious as to how.
I saw
don't know
pictures
that actor.
online, and it looks like they actually projected something like lights on his chest, which made it look like. Wouldn't that be nice? I don't know why they didn't do this
to make
it look like his heart was growing, like just a lighting effect.
That would have been.
Maybe he laughed, but he had a lighting effect. It looked
It's like you had one job. You had to do this big, the heart
Yeah.
growing 3 sizes.
Yeah, all they
Just
had
skipped
was
it.
they had old Max do this, and it was like, oh,
Yeah.
It's really more compelling to watch it in the Chuck Jones cartoon, guys.
Yeah.
When it like bursts out of the X-ray machine. and
Exactly, I
stuff.
love
Like,
that.
They had plans for it, but it was like low on the priorities list, and they didn't get to
It's
it.
possible.
It's tough.
Seems like
So the Cindy Lou Who was very
Very
cute.
good.
She was very cute. She had a song called Santa for a Day.
Didn't make sense,
And it was the first song I think I could latch onto a melody. It was the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't one of the Bahu Forays was the before.
Yeah, I
but,
mean,
like,
like,
that
yeah.
doesn't count. They didn't write that one.
Yeah, they didn't write that one. But she sang it, and it was really cute. And she
Yeah.
was very sweet. It was very Maybe from Annie.
Definitely.
Which is fine. Like, give
And the
us a
Grinch is
nice,
like-
wistful child ballad.
At least it didn't sound exactly like Maybe.
So
Like,
just think of how difficult that is to justify as an actor. It's like, you're trying to say that this guy's been this way for however long, dozens of years,
50 years or something like that.
and now he's actually listening to a little girl, and he's like, oh, maybe life's not so bad. Like, it's like, how do you?
Okay.
That's tough to justify.
He
I mean, a lot of it is.
look,
That's not
Matthew
even
Morrison,
supposed to be- I
you
give it
made
up.
the choice to
I
do
give
a
it up.
Donald Trump impression.
Who is your friend?
Don't do friends or do me. That's enough in the end.
That was some cruise ship.
I've done a
shit.
lot of shows, and in rehearsal, when you get a laugh at something, sometimes things tend to stay in the show when they really shouldn't.
Yeah.
As loath as anyone is to hear a Donald Trump impression, but at least people can make that reference.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing at first
No.
because it was.
We had to rewind it like
to be
3
quite
times.
fair. To be quite fair, it was kind of a subtle dig. It wasn't like he was going like over the top and doing a bunch of
A
like
huge
crazy.
thing. It was one line.
He wasn't doing the like the thing that
Yeah.
everyone does. He did like a very subtle one sentence. But
He was like, the parents are gonna love
and he
this.
didn't dwell on it, just move right
Yeah, and he moved right
Yeah.
along. Like you guys said, like cruise shippy, very like
Yeah.
Hey, we're hip. We
Sassy
know what's
and-
going on.
Yeah.
Oh, going back to the fact that there's a role for every person in your community theater, I really did actually like the Thing 1 and Thing 2 pairing.
If that's what they're supposed to be, because to me, when I noticed that, I was like, oh, the hair and I get it now.
I don't know.
It's at least an homage to.
Yeah.
No, they're perfect though for like those people in your show who like they can't be the leads. They're like probably more dancers or like more like kind of clown character actors.
Mm-hmm.
They got to work their way up to getting a bigger part later. So you give them something like this to kind of see how they do. Okay, these two are genuinely the MVPs of this.
The mean ones.
What?
Mr. Grinch. You really are.
Do you have a couple dancers in your department who are like not great singers but are really good at being like Fosse buddies? These two, nailing it.
Thing
1 and Thing 2.
Oh, that!
I just realized it.
They were really
You're
cute.
thinking all like
They
next
were
level.
great.
Are you kidding me? This is what I do with my whole
Four-dimensional
life.
chess over here.
Yeah, exactly.
They were both really good dancers,
Yeah.
good singers. They had good presence.
They could
skate.
They're good. They're in skates, baby. This is some Fosse. This musical just borrows from everyone.
3 words that best describe you.
Oh, I love you, Dennis O'Hare.
They were skated on
Yeah,
stage
roller
while like
skating.
dancing and stuff, doing like a Fosse bit. Like,
But I just felt
neat.
I felt so bad for the mom and dad and the grandpa. There were very few interactive lines between any of. They would say some dialogue in verse, and then they'd start a song, and then all 4 of them would be singing the same thing in harmony to each other, and not doing any give and take back and forth. None of that. Just let's all sing the same thing, and we're all on the same page. And it was like, well, couldn't we have fleshed out stuff with the parents?
Well-
Couldn't we have done a lot of bumping up of that stuff? That's all there. But instead, it's just we need to give the guy some more hands.
Well, and if you're a composer that writes musicals, you do stuff like that.
Yeah.
These guys didn't.
well, at the same time, like that song was about more. We're excited about Christmas shit, and we've already had
So surface.
5-6 songs about that. We don't need another song driving that point home as the first song in the second act, mind
Who's
you.
like Christmas? Who's like Christmas? Who likes Christmas? Who's like? We even had 2
Amazing.
ensemble numbers where they had the trope of the ensemble all coming together center stage and standing with choir arms and singing a cappella.
2 or
and,
3 times.
And yeah.
It's just why? There's no reason for that. Maybe once.
I do that in my kids shows all the
Occasionally.
time, and that's fine.
Yeah,
But like their kids show.
Well, but if it was,
Give them something
You can
to
have
do.
those moments, but
They
then
have
give
like
us
3 of them.
in the other moments. Give us melody. Give
Yeah.
us something interesting to
Or
listen to.
give, while they're doing those parts, make something happening rather than just standing there and giving a choir performance.
Like if you write a song for your show, and this is what it looks like, you need to start again. You need to like rethink the scene. I'm telling you.
I agree. I kind of agree, man.
So this is the thing about these Christmas musicals, and we kind of figured this out when we watched The Christmas Story live a few years ago.
God, I hate
Is that even if these Christmas shows are bad, you'll watch them because it's Christmas content. It's Christmas musicals. So that's why we have these musicals that go up for like 6 to 8 weeks out of the year. On Broadway, like Elf was going on Broadway every year.
yeah.
White Christmas was doing that for a while.
I love White Christmas.
And White Christmas is good, but like it's just so funny. The Grinch, I think, has lasted because community theaters need Christmas content. National tours need Christmas content.
Yep.
And everyone knows the Grinch. And whether it's good or bad, who cares? The parents can take their kids to see this familiar title. And it won't be that long.
With a cartoony character that the kids will like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all
Makes sense.
sound. All of the logic behind that is sound for the producers. It's just the story and the writing isn't there in this show.
Yeah.
All sound and fury signifying nothing.
Nada. So what would be a musical that you think is like a good family musical that kids and parents can enjoy?
Like what?
I got one. How about The Lion King?
Lion King is great. I would
It's got
think
puppets in it.
any
Yeah.
Disney adaptation on stage is probably good for
Pretty
the whole
good,
family
pretty
to
good,
see.
right?
Beauty and the Beast is good.
Mary
good.
Poppins.
Mary Poppins, I think, is supposed to be kind of good.
pretty good.
I don't think it's as good as the movie,
Wizard
but
of Oz?
Wizard of Oz, definitely. That's a good one. I would say Annie is probably the perfect one. It's a perfect family musical because it does cater to kids, but there are adult jokes that go over their heads.
Oh, and there's a dog.
And there's a dog, and it kind of teaches you about a time in history without kind of hitting you over the head with it.
Yeah.
I think Matilda's a good one
I
too.
haven't seen that one.
Yeah, Matilda's a pretty good family musical, but it's also based on a really good story.
Okay.
I mean,
Gypsy.
The Sound of Music is a really good
Yeah,
one,
that was a good
obviously.
one. Oh, yeah.
Not Gypsy.
I was kidding.
Well,
Bump it with
Joseph?
the trumpet.
You remember all the kids you can put in Joseph? You can just have them run around.
Oh,
Joseph,
yeah,
yeah.
Joseph. Joseph, the
is a
Amazing
good one.
Technicolor Dreamcoat. Right.
So, like, it can happen, and I don't think... I guess it's like the Pixar Disney thing. Like, just because it's for kids doesn't mean it has to be stupid.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean it has to be bad.
And that is on the writers and the directors.
And you know
Please
what?
listen.
That's right.
Look, I know this show has a big following, especially if you grew up with it, if you're from San Diego. I'm not going to judge you or knock you for liking this. Gerald, no.
I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
kidding.
if this hits your nostalgic nerve just like the stupid movie does,
Yeah.
I might not like it, but I could be wrong, so who cares?
Probably
it's-
wrong.
It's just an opinion.
It's just an
an
opinion.
You can have your
So,
own opinion too.
Yeah, but
Well, can we instead like watch the Muppet Christmas Carol? That's a musical.
Ooh.
Oh,
Next.
I
Scrooge.
love that one. And Scrooge.
let's watch and Mickey's Christmas Carol. Let's watch
I love
all
Mickey's
the Christmas carols.
There's a lot of good ones.
Let's do it all.
Okay, so final verdict on the Grinch musical, Jeff.
Again, valiant effort by the cast. I felt like we were let down by the directing, and obviously the writing just wasn't up to par.
Cody and Gerald.
I'm going to give the sets a solid A-.
The whole show, I think I want to give it a D.
Ooh!
But I'm gonna give the cast an A for effort and just for having fun. Because you know
Being
what?
talented.
You got to do some theater while all this COVID's going on, and I, you know what? Congratulations! I'm glad you got to do that.
Yeah, good job.
And I would say if you are in a community theater production of this or going to see a community theater production of this, you'll probably have a great time.
Totally.
You'll probably have a wonderful blast in a nice theater. Can you just close your eyes and just remember that feeling of being in a theatrical house. The lights are going down. You have your hot cup of cocoa from concessions that you snuck in. You hear the orchestra pit kind of starting to warm up. And then they play the overture for this stupid Grinch musical. And you know what? You're still happy. So I think do that. If you want to like have a drink and watch this with friends and laugh, you will.
It's fine.
And since we can't see real theater right now, watching this might scratch that itch. It really might.
Look, guys, the last thing that we got to see in theaters before all this happened was For the Love of a Glove.
Oh yeah.
This was better
The
than
last
that.
show we saw
This was
before
better.
the coronavirus struck was the musical about the Michael Jackson glove that was
That was an alien that came from space that made him do all the
Just
terrible
watch the
things.
video
It's
up
horrible.
there.
We'll
It
put
was
a link.
thing.
in the
Support your
description.
local theater, but
Support
still
it.
support your local theater.
Do it.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope you enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Rehashing the Grinch
We
musical.
enjoyed it.
We did.
It was
And
silly.
if we don't see you again this year, have a happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy solstice, happy all the holidays at this time of year.
And have a wonderful
And
new year
be
in 2021.
safe.
Yes.
We're
Wear-
almost done with this year.
Wear your masks.
Don't be a Grinch!
Social
Happy
distance.
holidays, everybody.
Flatten the curve.
We'll see you soon.
Flatten the curve.
Stealing